The last question up here from Star Wars Galactic, as we are nearing the hour mark. How do you think No Time to Die will perform in cinemas? That is an interesting question. And for reference, I brought up some numbers here from the previous Bond films that had Daniel Craig. And it's actually a very interesting progression. So, Casino Royale, his first film, made $594 million. Very solid. Very, very solid. And it's hailed as one of the best Bond films ever made, just for reference. Quantum of Solace made $591 million. It had problems, I think, with production, and it's largely considered one of the weaker Bond films that he's done. Probably the weakest, and if not one of the weaker films that, in the Bond saga, I guess, Bond franchise. So there's that. Basically the same as Casino Royale. Skyfall made $1.1 billion and is considered one of the better Bond films. In fact, one of the best Daniel Craig Bond films. And it made $1.1 billion. Great. So it made a huge jump all of a sudden in terms of box office. Spectre went down a little bit. $879 million. And again, it was considered not quite as great, but it almost made $900 million. And now we come to No Time to Die, which is going to release in 2021, supposedly. Look, we can't pretend we live in a normal world anymore, though. We don't. The pandemic is still here. It's going to be here in the fall. In some capacity, hopefully better, but in some capacity. James Bond is not going to make, I don't think is going to make, say, $800 million. $700 million even. I don't think so. We'll have to see. But if a Marvel movie, Black Widow, can't make, $500 million, I just don't see James Bond making $600 or $700 million. Can it hit $500 million? Maybe. If I had to put a number on it, I am going to put it at $400 million. All depending on two factors, obviously. The pandemic and word of mouth. Because you see that, with a couple exceptions, that the fluctuation in box office, it depends on how good the movie is. If Spectre were better than Skyfall, it would have made $1 billion. I guarantee that. Unfortunately, it didn't get that good press. It didn't get that good word of mouth, and it made still over $800 million, but not $1 billion. If this Bond film, No Time to Die, is good, I think it can, the word of mouth can spread it pretty far. Speaking of spreading, though, hopefully the pandemic is not as severe as it is as it is now when No Time to Die comes out. I just don't think it can make $500 million, though. If I had to guess, I would say $400 million, if I had to guess. Now, if you're going to ask me how much would it have made in a non-pandemic era, it just depends on how the word of mouth treats the film, because obviously, as you can see, Skyfall made $1 billion, and then Spectre went down about $200 million. I would have put it at about $800 million, conservatively. I think if it was a good film, it would have made $1 billion. I just think that it just depends on the pandemic for now, for us in our current age and day and age, and it depends on the word of mouth. That's all. If you want to ask me for a hard number, I'll give you $400 million. That's my guess.